की जय.
Okay, so the oven is on at 300, preheating it. So when these go in, they'll be ready. The ones that I was experimenting with today is a version of a sandy, but instead of pecans, I used almond flour since we already had some almond flour. So basically, it was almond flour, butter, a little bit of powdered sugar and vanilla, and some oat flour, and that's it. So let's see. So this recipe here, this is chopped pecans, and I've doubled the recipe because they're little ones. This is a confectionery or powdered sugar, which is doubled. This is the butter, which is 2 cups, because these are like a shortbread. There's really not a lot of liquid. This is vanilla with water, we call it for, and flour, and that's it. So this is what I'm going to do. I like to use my hands. So a lot of times when it says to cream or whatever, I prefer doing it this way over a spoon. So we're just going to add.
That's regular flour?
This is regular flour. So this is double recipe, so it's 4 cups. Hopefully I got a big enough bowl.
So you can use almond flour and cocoa.
Well, that's what we're going to see, how it
Instead of all the flour, you use almond flour?
I did in what I just baked. So this is the standard recipe, and I think you can use walnuts sometimes. People have used chopped walnuts. And it just takes a while for everything to kind of...
So other than the taste and the texture, what does the different flour add or subtract from the cookie?
You'll see.
We don't know.
That's
Right?
right.
You never tried this with almond flour?
I haven't. Today's the day. This is what I like to do. You're all guinea pigs.
So Jackie, did you use half and half almond flour and half oat?
I used a lot of almond flour and a little bit of oat flour until it looked right, you know. Because it didn't look right at first by these measurements, and so then I had to get a little drier. It was wetter.
The butter and the flour?
So it's just kind of the heat. This is just the way I like to do it. The heat from my hands, mushing in with the flour.
Remembering your cats.
That's right, it's like, you know.
Looks like much more fun to whip a spoon.
I don't know if I'm going to bowl. What do you think, probably should put it in that bowl?
And all of the bakers have been requested to do about 4 dozen cookies each round. So we'll have 48 cookies. We'll yield 48 cookies for the afternoon. 4 dozen.
Everybody's expected to eat them all.
Yep. There's many other people joining us for that time.
Sorry.
I'll be there at 5. Okay, great.
Sometimes you have
Everyone's
to
welcome.
modify it, you know what I mean? Sometimes if it doesn't seem right, you know, you add a little more, tiny bit more water or whatever you need. So here's the powdered sugar, so I'm just going to put this in now. And just put it all in. And then there's some oil in the pecans also, so that helps with the binding.
What kind of oil did you use?
Butter and pecan.
If you wanted to use another sweetener besides powdered sugar, you could use what, maple syrup?
You probably could. It'd be worth trying. You might have to modify something because it would be another liquid maybe, so maybe you wouldn't add the water. I don't know, I'm just guessing here. See now how it's getting nice?
Wait, how much water did you add?
I just added it's 1 tablespoon per recipe. Was that not in there? Did I miss it?
Yeah. No, you didn't. Down here.
But you know, it's all a matter of like feel, I think. That's why when you follow recipes, sometimes I don't think they're exact, or it depends, like you said on the mung, you know, you don't know what the mung's like. Or
Well, with flour too, it depends on the weather. There's a lot
in the air.
Yeah, and if you were making these vegan, the vegan butter is a lot different, you know, so you just have to, it's more liquidy, I think, when it cooks. It's like, it's oilier, so you have to find that balance, right. All right, I think it might be ready.
It looks beautiful. It's not
Jack,
slimy.
what about the air and, I mean, you're kneading this like
Just mix
like
it.
clay, right? But is it the more you mix it, the better she goes, or you just try
No,
and get it
it's just, you know.
homogeneous? You just do it by...
Yeah.
You need to make sure, does one have to make sure that it's like really mixed thoroughly, so like in between?
Everything is integrated, yeah.
So like everything.
Yeah. You know, but you could add little chips in here. I mean, you could do all kinds of things with this.
But the
A
thing
whole
is,
lot
you
of
have,
people here that like to stick their hands in
Let me
there.
try it.
I told her that.
I did mention that.
So,
I have a question, but also like when, you know, you know how to bake. So if someone didn't bake, how would you know with texture or stuff?
you'll learn. I mean, I think this is one of the things that, it's like nobody told me, like nobody said this is how you do it. It was just like you just kind of got a recipe, or you found a recipe, and then you make mistakes. But I think it's through the mistakes that you end up finding the way. You know, I just do.
True life.
And you get a cookie at the end.
Right.
There's the inner journey and then there's the baking journey.
Or rejects.
Or you could use like coconut, maybe, if it was, but that liquefies too, real easy. So this calls for being baked on a ungreased, because why would you guess that from the amount of butter that was in there?
Okay.
And this is what you can do. You can do it two ways. You can just, you know, if you want to do it like that, or you can roll it. But I would recommend this because I don't think it really needs to be rolled anymore. So if everybody wants to,
So we're gonna do the same thing we did this morning, go like in a production and
can.
around. Same.
and then probably space it about, because they really don't expand that much. There was nothing else in there, no baking soda, no baking powder, nothing. So it's like a shortbread in a way. So I would put the next one about here. You got that? Okay.
We're all gonna take turns and come around.
And then when they come out, right, when they're warm,
Then
then
we'll
you
all roll them.
Yeah.
We're all gonna get to roll too.
Thank you.
Jackie, would you put chopped dates in this particular? No.
I don't think so.
What else would you put?
Chocolate chips,
Chips?
maybe little
Okay.
mini chips.
Mini chips.
Yep, we're all taking, so we're just going around in a loop here.
Always clockwise, always clockwise.
No.
Always clockwise.
Well, we love Ron and Jackie because they do their dishes. So we come out here, it's like, oh, aren't they? Where that shit from? Well, that's not to the exclusion of others. Mischievous, quite good.
Right?
Yeah.
So when they bake, do they spread out or do they stay around?
No, they really don't spread
No,
out.
they're close to
Then watch me say it, and this time they will. Then we'll just have one big, large cookie.
So you said you could roll them too if you wanted to?
After they
I
cook.
don't know, yeah, you can make a little, like a bottom and top ball.
So everybody can integrate this into your Christmas baking this year.
It's the stuff to take over the kitchen for baking. And do all we learned.
There's Christmas cakes, they can start like when you're.
Okay.
You get a lot.
I think some people call these wedding cookies too.
That's right, mixed with
Yeah, right. Mexican wedding.
Yeah. But some of them are
Oh, yeah.
walnuts, right? Instead of the cookies.
Yeah, clean it up, Gopi.
It can be off.
This is J Street.
I mean, I can finish doing it if you want to start the chai process. I mean,
Everybody finish.
I was wondering what you were doing in your little back room.
Now I know. That's great, thank you. I'm gonna go here, this mug.
There, let's see, perfect problem.
Don't
Forget the chili.
But it's that size, a scooper too. And if you went to a larger scooper, you wouldn't get as many. But these are nice little pop in your mouth kind of. They're like bites.
Yeah,
These are those ones that melt in your mouth.
Oh, wait.
Figure out.
We have to get
Everybody
it
done?
done?
Ramesh? Everybody done? Yeah.
So do you want me to take that to the back and finish?
No, you can be here. It'll make 10. At 10 and 10. Okay.
And if, you know, you can always freeze it too. And it's, if you made too much dough, and it's fine, bring out and,
How long does the freezer dough last? Like, does it get weirder? Like, you know how like with other things it gets like freezer burned or any of that stuff? Do you have to worry about
oh
that?
yeah, I left it in there. Well, I've had it.
Okay.
We could experiment.
They can last quite long. My mom makes with dough with a lot of butter. So when there's a lot of butter involved, they can last a long time in the freezer.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay.
She makes croissants.
Oh, wow.
Lots of them.
No, she keeps them in the freezer.
That's great.
Because I even wondered like using this for a,
Media lunas or
Media
croissants?
lunas.
Media lunas. That we have to make here one time.
Mm.
Media lunas, we
I'll have to
definitely
ask
have
her
to
the
have
recipe.
those here, yeah. The sweet ones and the salty ones. So the sweet ones and the savory ones. So maybe you guys can work on that one when you come back. And then when you come back, we can do
I
that
should bring my mom.
next year. Okay, do it. Most welcome, do it. Media lunas from Argentina. Sweet and salty.
What are they?
They're the miniature croissants, but they're very, very tiny, and I mean, there you can get them. I think there's two different types. What I've learned over the years, one has the pig fat, and one has the non-pig fat. So whenever Gouda goes, and whenever we all travel there, we always obviously get the ones that don't have that. So they usually find them from the best bakeries, fresh in the morning, and they're tiny, they're petite. Yeah, and they look like the moon, and they're petite. So they're not like the big croissants, and they're just lovely in that afternoon coffee or that morning coffee. Not as good with chai. They're definitely, they need to go with, I would say, with coffee. Coffee's better.
The sweet version usually is butter. They're made with butter. And
Okay.
the salty can be made either with the pig fat or with butter.
Okay. Sometimes we saw like over the years, like some of them were like really shiny, or they were like really like with some kind of glaze. And I was like, oh, what is that? And then when somebody finally said, just so you know, Devyani, there's this and there's this, I said, okay, going forward, let's make sure it's only this. So we don't want to be responsible for putting that in people's tummies.
Funny, right?
So is pig fat manteca, is it large?
Manteca.
They were good, right?
Okay, perfect. So these are going to go in the oven now, and then you're going to set the
For
timer for
20 minutes.
20 minutes. And maybe we'll, before we start on the chai, we'll just take a look at the vegan ones that are coming out and see. Because those, I think we've been in here 20 minutes. I think those might be on their way out.
20 minutes because it's an
Or sorry, not vegan, gluten-free. Sorry. Trying to keep all this straight. Dairy-free, vegan, gluten-free,
Cruelty-free.
lactose-free, yeah.
Non-GMO.
Yeah, exactly.
Does the regular oven cook?
Definitely, this is completely different from the confection oven. I'll let her tell, I don't know. Ron, excuse me, question for you on the confection oven and on the regular baking oven here. What would be the difference in time and stuff, like if you, and the heat wise?
But because confection is hot air circulated within the oven to keep the temperature very even, very constant, it usually cooks faster and a little bit hotter. And so you probably would lower your temperature, say if we cooked at 350, you might lower it to like 325, and the time might be a lot shorter. By a couple of minutes.
Okay, so by a couple of minutes. Okay. All right.
Ooh, dipping them in this sugar.
So this I used parchment because they seemed to be more, they seemed to be a little softer than the others, right?
So the other ones are on the ungreased cookie sheet. This one you put down parchment paper because of the texture of the dough.
So if you wanted to roll some, you want them to roll some?
Absolutely.
Wash your hands first.
Anybody? Yep, I think most everybody came in. So those of you who want to roll, right here. You can do it from that side. Yep.
Don't forget the money.
Om Namah Shivaya.
They're still warm, so the powdered sugar is adhering.
Okay. Nice.
Plus the fat probably in the cookie.
So those are sitting out there for a while, so you let them sit before you roll them?
No, you can, I like actually do it when they're a little warmer because it just kind of, I don't know, just like it
Gets in there.
sort of melts a little bit on there if you do it again. So you can have a double.
We love that part about it. We love that.
Double roll.
It's like chocolate chips, when you get the chocolate chip cookies and it's a little bit gooey. Who's next? Anybody else?
Moving in.
Mom, Martin, roll them.
Coming down.
They were my mother's favorite and my nephew's favorite. So whenever I make Christmas cookies, they said to make sure that those are in there.
And our favorites too.
Yeah.
Who else?
The single recipe.
Come on, Cable.
So whatever the single recipe. I doubled it. So 2 cups of coffee, so it's a fresh log, fine and it's good too because these really don't have a lot of sugar in them. I mean,
Except for the powdered sugar, really?
it's only like a half a cup of powdered sugar to 4 cups of flour. So it's a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar to, what is it, 1 cup? Yeah.
Yeah, that's not much sugar.
Yeah.
So did you put chopped pecans in this?
No, because I decided to use the ground almond.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that would be a little more.
if I did the pecans, I would just use, I
Me
think,
done.
the oatmeal. But then I was afraid it might be too much like an oatmeal, you know?
Your technique is just
Christmas. We got a few weeks away here. Who else wants to, Jackie, you wanna?
Finish off?
Yeah.
Christmassy.
Does everybody want the powdered sugar or somebody? Okay. I think it needs it because they really aren't.
Are they dry, are these ones drier or more moist? We'll try
You can
and
compare.
find out.
Yeah.
One of this and one of that.
Now that that bowl is standing there, I've been wondering, what does SP stand for? It has SP.
On the bowl?
That could be someone's name that was Suman Putney, which was Harsha's mother. However, that's the first thing that comes to me, but the second thing is we also at some point, we did the writing of all of the different things that belong to the dining room of the stainless stuff, of the talis, things that belong to the puja, things that belong to Srinivas, things that belong to Namaste. So we did a color coding painting thing. That's SP though, I have a feeling is still from the lady whose bowl that was initially.
I'm watching her fingers and motor skills.
How do you feel, Jackie?
We can use that powdered sugar since it hasn't had the wheat in it. Right, Raviano?
The powdered sugar that what?
Has it been touched by wheat? I'm
Okay.
teasing.
Okay.
No, but I mean, whenever you cook, like you do the non-wheat first and
Okay.
non-nuts or
Oh, okay. Yep.
So you don't contaminate that.
contaminate it, right?
It's like people with knives and stuff in the kitchen, the ones that use knives and cutting boards and stuff
Oh.
with meat stuff, and the ones with
Oh.
vegetarian, right?
It's
To
like
keep it all
kosher.
separate. Yeah, they have it all like color coded and.
So my youngest grandson is allergic to all nuts. So if I bake for him, it's
Oh, sad,
limited.
yeah.
And you can make your own powdered sugar, just grind it like in a coffee grinder, like regular sugar and grind
So you
it.
just
Powdered
put
sugar.
regular
Yeah,
white
regular
sugar
sugar,
in
yeah.
a coffee grinder
Yeah.
and it makes powdered sugar?
You could put it in a
And
mix.
you add anything to it or nothing?
Nothing, because sometimes when you buy it, they add some
Cornstarch.
Oh, wow.
So you
Okay.
can,
Unless you want the cornstarch in there for icing,
I
right?
didn't know that.
so easy. And it's fresh. Very fresh.
All right. So we can add that into here for the next roll.
So now, can we put these in a safe place till a safe place till 5 o'clock? Because otherwise we'll get out there. We'll all be in here and half of them will be gone by the time we get out there. We'll be like, wait a second, we're gonna all try the ones that were gluten-free and the ones that were with the gluten, yeah. All right, so how many people are ready to go with the chai?
Yes.
Right, are we ready to go with chai? Okay, so let me,
15 minutes
all right, so first of all, close your eyes to the type of milk that we're using, okay? Everybody in your own kitchens, you can use,
Almond milk.
no, not almond milk, no. Organic milk, yeah. So mostly, I mean, when we're large crowds, we go to this milk, but basically, otherwise you can use your organic milk. And the main thing with the milk is it depends on, when it comes to chai, there's not like a particular measurement on the type of milk or on the type of water, not water, sorry, anything to do with the milk, because it depends on what kind of milk you're using. So if you're using 2% milk, so technically on a 2% milk, you wouldn't put any water in, because otherwise it becomes too watery, right? If you use like the farm milk, like what Gopi brings us from the cows, we don't put any water in that one either, because it's already thin, right? But it's creamy and it's nice, so we don't put any water in that one either. This milk, we definitely go with the proportions and add water to it. So for example, this 1/2 gallon here, this one is 20 cups of milk here, right? So 20 cups, 20 of our chai cups, okay? So this is this a gallon?
Yeah,
Okay, so this is 20 cups here. So what we're gonna do is now the main thing you wanna make sure is, with chai, no matter what the amount is, make sure that you have at least this much space for your boiling, right? So make sure if you're making, depending upon how much chai you're making, if you're making 5 cups of chai, don't use a pot that's gonna bring it right up to the edge, because then you have no room for it to boil, because you definitely want it to boil for a while. So you definitely make sure that you have the room for the boil. So here we're gonna start off with this jug, which is 20 cups. So right now what we're gonna be making is 32 cups. That's the amount that I've been requested to make for this evening's chai time at 5 o'clock. So 32 cups. So here's 20 that we're gonna go to with the milk. And then we're gonna add 12 cups of water. Okay, so almost about half, right? So a little bit less than
So it charges to bring it home to a boil, but not to boil.
All right, so now,
Viviani, would there be any difference between homogenized and non-homogenized milk?
no, I would just think, and sometimes you have to like actually feel the weight of the milk to like know if that milk has a lot of body to it and it's a lot heavier. So then you're definitely going to want to add more water to that. So then your proportion would be, so say it's like 10 cups of chai on something like that, you're definitely going to do like maybe 4 cups of milk and you're going to do 6 cups of water, because it's so, the ratio on that is heavier. But like Gopi's milk that she brings, so that we don't put any water at all, just pure cow's farm milk.
So
right?
it's not even pasteurized then? Yeah. It's just raw?
And that one, we just do it just like that. We don't add any water to it at all. All right, so then the next thing we're going to do is put this so that it begins to come to a boil, but we're not going to rush it. We're going to let it take its time. Now in this case, just for today's demonstration, we're going to go with the white sugar, but otherwise raw sugar is fine. You can also make it with honey, not a problem, but if you stick to the regular thing, you need to make sure that your milk and the water combination is completely hot before you add your sugar. Otherwise, it's not going to blend in. And the idea with chai is that all the ingredients get put into it, but it all gets to boil together. It's not doing the milk separate, doing the water separate, then combining it over here, then adding the lemongrass, then adding the sugar. You want to do it all together so that all the flavors boil together and really like bring out the flavor of all of it. So that's going to take a couple of minutes over there.
A practical question.
Yes.
How do you avoid burning your pot?
How do you?
Milk adheres to the bottom of the pot really easily. So
I think that would have to do more with the flame. So accordingly,
not
pay
too high
attention to your flame. Yeah, exactly. Just lower your flame a little bit. And some people, I mean, like say for example, like up at Srinivas, the architect comes, somebody comes, it's like, okay, quickly let's make chai for this person. So it's like, okay, if we've got 3 people there, it's like we're gonna take a pot that's gonna be thinner and quicker, not one of our heavier pots that has a heavier base, so that we know that the milk and the water and all that's gonna boil like much quicker. And then on that you would use a high flame, but you can also take the pan, if it's like a high flame like that, and you can also, like with your own hand, be able to like hold it above.
Right.
You don't have to necessarily place it here. So you can always like even hold it up here. So sometimes when we're making chai like really fast,
Right.
we'll keep the pan up like this, and then you definitely have no problem with the burning of the milk.
Right.
But yeah, or you can keep stirring it. I mean, usually once we put it here for a little bit, we know this is at least 15 minutes out.
Right.
So we don't really worry about it too much. The only point that we start to worry about is once we add the sugar, then you gotta make sure that you keep stirring it so that the sugar blends in and integrates in and dissolves rather than sticking to the bottom of it. Because then otherwise then the sweetness of the milk and the water together doesn't gain that.
So you'd never make chai without adding the sugar, putting the sugar in later. You always cook the sugar into
Always
it.
into it if you're serving it like that. But like on Sunday satsang, sometimes Gurda will say, okay, how many with chai and how many with no chai? So then at that point, then it's like, then we make it, if we're making it with sugar, it's already in there. And if we're not doing sugar, then we just make it without and just put it out there and then people can add their own. But to really get the enjoyment of the chai, if you add it afterwards, it's never the same. It's just not the same.
Okay,
Yeah, that is like a fact straight across the board.
that's good to know.
Anywhere. I mean, you could go to somebody's house and you'll say, I'll have it without sugar, and then you'll put in a little bit afterwards, and it's like, okay, I'm doing this for health reasons, or I'm doing this for something, but like the real chai, it needs to be like already in there.
So it's almost like
the-
sweetened condensed milk.
Yeah,
You know, that's all
exactly.
maybe-
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. So what we'll do is soon we'll add the sugar. So if we've got 32 cups in here, so usually it's about anywhere from like a half a teaspoon to a teaspoon per cup, right? So technically you'd have like 30. I mean, I usually try to like drop it down a little bit so like so that it's not too sweet. So if it's 32 cups here, I'd probably start with about 25 to 26 teaspoons of sugar. So instead of doing the teaspoon thing like that, you just take your tablespoon, right? You just take your tablespoon and just count each tablespoon as two, you know? Or we just take it like that, put it in our hand and just go. And then you take it from there and it's like, okay, you know, and you can tell by looking at it how much is the weight of it. Again, it's like this subtle measurement kind of thing, like the weight. So then you put the sugar in, and then you wait for that all to come to a boil, right? Till that starts getting really nicely boiled and mixed. And today what we're gonna do is we're gonna go with the lemongrass. Now, usually like out here behind Srinivas, we have all the lemongrass plants that are fresh. Right now, obviously with the frost and stuff, they're done. But this one is from Magod. So what we usually do is all of that, we try to get that down here as much as we can, like in the spring and the fall for everybody here. So basically you just cut the strands there with the scissors, bring it up here, wash it, and then right there and then you can just with the scissors just cut it right into small pieces and just put it straight in.
So it's much better
Right?
fresh.
It's much better fresh, yeah, much better fresh. And the fragrance is just, I mean, it's to die for. So today we're gonna go with the lemongrass one. So then once this goes in, that also will boil around in there for a while. And then of course, last but not least is the tea leaves. Now, every single time you have tea leaves, I'm gonna tell you every single time, any country, any place, anywhere, you have to watch the color because it's not a straight measurement. Every tea leaf is different. Every tea leaf has its own strength. And sometimes you think, like for example, with this one, I don't know which brand,
Golden tea.
Golden tea.
Yeah, golden tea. So like the golden tea is one particular thing. So you might say, okay, great, I'm gonna put, you know, if that's 30 cups there, I'm gonna put probably again half of that in there. But technically, this could be stronger than the last batch of tea we got. If somebody tries a new brand, we bring a new brand from New Jersey, somewhere else, somebody says try this one. We get chai that's sent here, like in the big packs like this. I mean, and some of them, even within that, not every single package of tea is exactly the same strength. So then it's like, oh, well, how's the tea today? Today it's totally bitter. But it's like, because whoever made it with the same exact measurement that doesn't, so you really need to like know your tea. And every time it's different, so definitely always go less tea, watch the color, and then when the color starts to come and you see the boil and it all starts to merge and you see the color of it, at that point, then you know whether to add more or to stop. But definitely do your wait and see thing first and pause before you keep going with it. Because once it goes bitter, you definitely can't roll it back. It's not like the lemon and the sugar, what we talked about in the morning. It's not like you can add more sugar and get rid of the bitterness. Once that happens, you're done, right? So, so we're just gonna, it's gonna take a few minutes, but, and then, so our basic chai here is without spices, without anything. That's our basic chai, like, and even in India, like, that's the basic chai. Then you can have, for the next couple of days, we're gonna experiment on other ones. We can put also, like, sometimes we'll put saffron. So we'll do a saffron tea, we'll add saffron to our chai one day. Then another time, if it's summer, you can put cardamom. And if it's winter, then you go with the ginger. So usually we don't mix all of it together. It's either like when we're in the summer months, it's like, okay, let's put cardamom, and then we do that in the mortar pestle and do that and have the cardamom. Winter, the ginger, so for everybody's throats and for the body and the immune system, that helps. And then the kesar, usually we use the saffron thing for special occasions. It's always a little more expensive, but we love to do it for festivities and stuff like that. So sometimes like around Navratri or Baba Samadhi, Guru Purnima, you'll find that has the saffron in it, yeah. And then you also have the masala chai, which then you can add your garam masala, you can add all your other nutmeg and cinnamon and all the rest of it, and add that combination in that. That's not one of Gurda's favorites, so usually that's something that we usually save for when we go to the Indian homes, and then we usually have it there. But he'll usually many times say, you know, can I get one of, he'll always send one of us in there to make the chai, because sometimes he finds that it's too strong. And he doesn't like real strong chai, he likes it a little bit more milkier. But with the organic milk, there's definitely, I mean, that's your best way to go. And the farm milk is to die for, which is why on many of the occasions we're always taking the big jugs there and trying to get that for the paneer, try to get that for all the occasions, for all the good food on those bandaras and all of that. Yes?
Do you mix the lemongrass like with the ginger and the saffron and anything like that?
No, lemongrass is usually by itself. So usually lemongrass is on its own. You could put ginger with the lemongrass, but you wouldn't put like the lemongrass with the cardamom. You wouldn't put the lemongrass and the saffron. Those things you wouldn't mix. You would leave them all separate. Ginger and lemongrass you could do together. Yeah.
And that's a winter.
That's what? Ginger is winter. Yeah. Yeah, ginger's for the winter. Take the packet up the ganget. And chai is a funny thing, because one can look at it and go, oh, that's so easy, you know, like, but yet when it comes together and you see the color of it, you see the flavor of it, you can tell whether it's too thin, like it's not heavy enough with the milk, it's too, and that varies from like country to country. Like if we go to Argentina, the milk is also like more, not as heavy, you know, so it's like more thin, so there we also never put it with water. It's always just straight milk, and then we kind of have to like really, yeah, less tea because it's lighter. The milk is lighter, so it doesn't take the tea. It would make the color go really dark really fast. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's hard to, yeah.
So the way that we're making it now, is that the creamy way?
Yes.
Creamy?
Yeah, because that's because of the milk that we have. It's a heavier milk. Yeah, less water.
So you have any organic milk that didn't have water to it, or you did?
If you got the regular organic milk, like I would say, like the whole milk, then definitely add some water, because that's definitely quite creamy. And some of them, like the grass-fed, it has the cream on top. It has that nice layer of cream on top, cream line. So when you do that, you'll see it even puts like a little yellow layer on the top, like from the butter. So it's delicious. I mean, that makes really good chai. So, yeah. Yeah, so you definitely add water to that one.
And what if you don't add water to it? Will make it just really thick?
It'd be really rich, and then it gets really, I mean, then the chai is like really heavy. It's heavy, milky, fatty. I mean, then you add all that to it, right? Some of us can handle more fat than the other.
It's also harder to digest.
What? Yeah, right? Yeah. So, and in India, I mean, they use, sometimes they use very, like on the streets of Bombay and all of that, they'll use very little milk. So it's like really strong, and like, I mean, it'll, and then they'll do the thing where they pour it all the way up like this and cool it and everything, and they'll, make it in pots that have been sitting there all day, so the color of the chai is like really, really dark, and there's not very much milk in there. But I would say like that's hard on your stomach for sure because of the acidity from the tea. So like the milk, you want some milk, but not too much.
Does the buffalo milk have more
Watery,
fat or
more watery. It's definitely more watery. This is a great tea.
Is that what we're using now?
Yeah, that's what we have now. But again, we know tea merchants over in India, so what'll happen is like one tea merchant from Calcutta, they'll say, Digani, I'm gonna send you this one to try this year. So it's like they'll send us a big gunny bag of all that tea, and it'll come from one particular tea plantation that he has. Then other times, Ashok will go to the market, and in Matunga, they'll say, oh, we just got this tea, and why don't you guys try it? So then he'll send 6 sample bags of all different teas. We try them all up there, and then we're like, this one's out, this one's out, this one's out, this one's out, this one's a yes. And then it's like, okay, next time can you send us this one? We're gonna try this one. And then we'll order that for the big kitchen here. So there's a lot that goes into it, finding good tea.
It's very fine, this one.
What's the name of that tea?
Golden tea.
Golden tea.
Golden.
And you know what? Maybe do a count, somebody can do a count, how many people who go home would like to have one of those small bags of tea? Not today, but on Friday, when we do the distribution. Raise your hand if you need one of the bags of tea. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sita, you live here. What number did I come to? 7. Okay, so 7. Remind me how you got me now. 7 packets of tea, and we'll distribute those on Friday. Yes.
Maybe some important detail is the variety of tea is Assam.
The what?
Assam.
Assam. Yeah, well you have,
It may be Assam or Nilgiri, but
Yeah.
Assam is the most common and
yeah, and you also have Darjeeling, you also have, I mean,
That
there's
is
so
different
many.
taste.
Yeah, there's so many different ones.
this taste is Assam.
Okay.
What language is that?
Because some people think that
It's an area of India. It's an area of India. There's Darjeeling, there's Assam, and there's many different regions that you can go to. And I would say always, once you get your milk and water on the stove, pay attention. Because it's a real problem when it boils over and you can turn your head for 1 second and it's like, hold on a second, I gotta pay attention. And they're like, no, just come for 1 second. And you just barely go, the whole thing goes up. And it goes underneath, you gotta pull out the tray, you gotta clean up the whole thing. It becomes a real effort. So, and we've had it happen many, many times over the many, many years, but definitely everybody's focus, you need to watch. And you also need to have a handle on your, have a grip on your burner so that you know like where you're left and right, so you're not figuring it out as it starts to boil. So there's not that panic mode. Otherwise what happens is there's that quick panic mode. So usually a lot of times people will make sure to keep their pot holders like right there. So worst case scenario, you can just lift the whole thing up and put it over here while you figure out which way is simmer versus having the whole thing go up and over.
The lemongrass, when do you put that in? Just after it boils?
I'm gonna put it after this starts boiling a little bit. Then I'm gonna add the lemongrass, then I'm gonna add the sugar.
Throw the lemongrass in. If it's getting too hot, throw that in and lower the heat.
Yeah, but we wanna keep it like really active. Alright, so this, how many tablespoons do you think this is?
4.
Alright, so we're gonna use this, obviously, instead of going to the other.
We say 6.
6, yeah. Yes.
Figure out how many tablespoons. You've got at least 1 tablespoon of
the foam is starting to come up to the top here. So like when it starts to get to that point, you know you're not too far away from when the boil's gonna start.
How much sugar did you put in?
About like a little bit less than a teaspoon per cup. Yeah. But according, like if you've got a group that like everybody really wants sugar, so like just lower it. So we did definitely a little bit less than that. We'll see what it comes out with. And again, I would say like in terms of if you've got pot holders and all of that, or you don't go with trying to grab towels. Because if you try to go with the towel, 90% you're going to catch the towel on fire, and your whole tea is going to be focused on trying to like blow out this versus like just dealing with what you've got here. It's all trial and error. We've been every
The voice of
circumstance
experience.
everywhere. Yeah. Well, and also like different stoves. I mean, you go to some people's places, they have cooktops where you can't even tell the flame. You're not even dealing with the real flame. Then you have the electric ones where it's the coils and it's like you have no control over the burner. So we always prefer gas where you can control it constantly. See if you have full control over it if you're paying attention. And I would say with lemongrass, you definitely want to like use an abundant amount of it. You don't want to be like just a few little pieces. You're not going to get the flavor. You definitely, I would say you can't really put too much in there. So
Is
what?
the flavor fresh stronger than dry? If you put fresh in? will it be
Yeah,
stronger?
yeah. It's, I mean, amazing. This is not bad, but like, you guys want to pass it on? No, you just cut it. And if you have the fresh, you just take those stems. You don't have to like wash it, dry it, do the whole thing. Just right here, bing, 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 bing. Again, same thing of trying less dishes, less everything.
At Indian stores, we can get it fresh all the time.
Yeah, perfect. And is that the ones though that are like the real
Actually, in the
ornamental?
supermarket, you can buy the whole thing.
But not the one with the stem. That's the one you don't want. You don't want that. You want the one that's the ornamental grass looking one.
Okay, you
Go
don't
to
want the
back
one
of-
with the stem?
No, because that won't give you you can't cut that. That's like a stalk in the middle.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you definitely don't want that one. You want the one that's like the ornamental grass.
Okay.
It's like this. Yeah, exactly. Ornamental grass.
So you've never used the stalk?
No.
Like you would like a ginger stalk?
No.
It's quite thick.
No, exactly. Yeah.
What do you think about fresh mint or chai?
You can do putina. In India, they call it putina, and they do that sometimes. And again, and he's saying again, like the putina, you would do it by itself. Summertime by itself, and you definitely would not mix it with other spices or anything.
Moti made that sometimes.
Yeah.
And always you'd stand to see. Did you see?
I noticed you did a handful, then you went more later. Do you do it?
Yeah, again, it's like looking and feeling like when you put it in there, how much it's gonna move through the volume of what you've got there, and then again, like adjusting it. And then I think again, like, I mean, part of that's gonna be in one of our classes, like in the mornings, about the absence of fear when you cook and just being willing to take the risk and just go with it and just know that the freedom in that, now we're starting to get to a,
Did you already put the grass in?
yes, yeah.
And you put the whole
So why
bag?
doesn't everybody quickly walk around here and take the spoon and just stir it a little bit? Get everybody's love and feeling in there. Here.
You put the whole bag in, you said?
Yeah.
So organized.
You get that? You see that? And for the most part, I mean, even like on the sugar and stuff, like, I mean, raw sugar is great. Sometimes we get people here who make donations of the regular white sugar. We've tried to tell them, we don't use this, we don't use this, we don't use this. They come once or twice a year, they donate it in the temple. We get tons of it. We try to give it out to other places. But then in this way with the chai and stuff, we try to just use it up. It's their offering. They don't quite understand. There's a couple of Punjabi families. They just love the abundance of offering something to the ashram. So in this way, we try to move it through, move it on. Yes.
Should I let them see what the difference of the feel or not?
Yeah, we'll do that after. Let me just finish up this. I don't want this thing to boil. 30 cups of tea.
After that whole conversation.
Yes, right, I gotta stay right there. Don't leave it for a minute.
I've had to clean up a few of those. So it takes at least 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, for 30 cups. I mean, I could rush it and go like real fast, but the thing is that you want like sometimes up there, the Guru would say, I want a really nice cup of chai today. It's like, okay, and what that means, the milk should boil for probably 30 minutes to 45 minutes on a slow boil and boil and boil and boil and boil and like really, and the flavor comes out. And it also boils down. So if you're gonna make like 8 cups of chai and you're gonna put it on there and have it boil for 45 minutes, you're gonna yield maybe 5-6 cups of tea, 5-6 cups of chai, not 8.
So it's going to be
It's
what,
gonna boil
creamier?
down. Yeah, and it definitely gets flavor. The flavor, I can't tell you enough.
When you say when you say boil, is it those little bubbles at the beginning, or is it big?
No, it's a rolling boil. Like when we put and you definitely, that's the next thing. Now why we're gonna move to that with the tea leaves, definitely do not put your tea leaves in until you have that boiling. It's not good enough if it's just hot, and now you say, okay, let me put the tea leaves in now. And then you're still waiting with the tea leaves in there before it comes to a boil. The tea leaves must go in once it's boiling. Otherwise, your tea starts to get already like darker and bitter and all of that. And by the time it comes to that boil, when it's supposed to get like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 boils to it, where you're boiling it and you're bringing it down, you're boiling it, you're bringing it down, it's rising, it's falling, it's rising, it's falling. You don't want that to happen with just the tea leaves sitting in there and the hot milk and water. Not happening. It's got to happen right when the boil happens. It's really important. And you think what could be the big deal, but the flavor of it, totally different. So you definitely want that rise and fall and that boiling happening.
So when do you boil for 30 minutes? Like now?
Yeah, we're not going to boil it for 30 minutes. Did I say 30 minutes of boil? Sorry, I didn't mean 30 minutes of a straight boiling. I meant the rising and the falling like 8 times up and down and up and down and up and down.
I get that. I just meant if you were going to make a primo cup of chai.
Oh, yes, yeah. So that if you were doing like a specialty thing for somebody, yeah, you would just keep it on a low boil, very like on simmer, and just let it keep doing that low boil where it never really boils up and over. It just stays low. Alright, so why we're going to put the tea in, now it's boiling, but why we're going to put the tea in, I'm just going to lower this so that I know that I've got control over that. So now we're going to
So the milk is condensing, Gabriani. It's condensing. The milk is like condensing as it's.
Yeah, I would say the milk, the water, the sugar, the lemongrass is all coming together. It's all coming together and getting you like that really like concentrated flavor. And then you want to bring it up to your boil right away.
What color are you looking for?
You're going to see in a minute. I'm going to keep showing you. Okay. So right now, if you take a look here, it's very light.
Yeah.
Way too light. But I want to first boil it just a little bit before I start to add more. Right?
Yeah.
So definitely too light.
Strong,
Too light. But it can go from total light to total dark real quick.
Whoa.
Nothing like having 20 heads in the kitchen. 24 pairs of eyes.
Blow this thing out. It's
These are people who've had theirs boiled.
This is everybody who doesn't want their chai to be delayed. We don't want the chai time to be delayed. Just always stay in touch with your flame. You gotta pay attention to it constantly. And always, the other thing that I would recommend too, always make sure before you start your chai or while you've got the milk and water and you're waiting for things to boil, already have your containers, your vessels, and your strainer ready to roll. You don't want to be struggling at the last minute, then you end up turning it off, you're waiting, and then the tea's getting darker and darker and darker and more bitter because you didn't plan ahead. So you definitely want to have your strainers and your vessels of where it's going right before, right? Alright, so this is still definitely a little bit on the light side.
How much tea did you put in the first time? Because I didn't see.
3.
1?
3 teaspoons. 3 teaspoons.
2 or 3?
3. And now 4.
That's
4.
Thank you.
Thing is, how do you pour that?
32 cups. Yeah, and again, it's like Jackie said, it's like trial and error, as you do it, even if it's with 2 cups, 3 cups, small cups at your homes and stuff, you'll get the feeling of it. But you gotta like get into it, try it, and then you'll come up to your... Yeah, and I would say that at this point, like when it starts to come to the boil and stuff, you don't really need to like stir it that much. Mostly, I leave the spoon out at that point, and then it's more about the flame up, down, or lifting the pot up and down, but not dealing with the stirring of that. And just watching for the color. It's always about the color.
So this is up now 5th time or something, 6th time?
Kind of like a cafe latte, right? Color sort of.
Coming up now.
More milk than coffee.
It's like a cappuccino, a mocha cappuccino.
Alright, so now I'm content with where it's at. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the flame and we're just going to let it sit there for a minute. So we don't immediately go and strain it, we just let it settle down. And also what that does is it allows the boiling and the rumbling to come to its own pause. So before you try to go and strain it, you don't still have this activity and this happening thing, and then it becomes that the thing's like a moving piece kind of. So you want to wait until it kind of like just goes back to its like incubation stage, right? Resting stage, resting place, like just
All
like,
the
yeah.
tea leaves settle to the bottom.
Yeah, everything
It's
just
easier
does
to
its
strain.
things, like, and all the flavors again continue to like come together. And then I would always recommend what we always do. I mean, there's different ways of doing it, but you can always like take your vessels and you can always fill them with hot water first, so that they are already hot, so that when you put the hot chai in, they'll last longer, depending upon who you've got over for tea. And then I always suggest, I'm more of the type of person that prefers, rather than taking like a ladle, and like taking a ladle and doing it like one thing at a time and trying to go like that, just take the whole pot. And then that's why you want to make sure that you try to have a pot that has a good lip on it, that doesn't backsplash, that doesn't backfall into itself. So if you have a good pot, then when you do it, I would always suggest that you take your vessels or whatever, your pitchers or your teapots or whatever you're going to use, put them in the sink, put the strainer in there, and when people say, let me help you, and they want to hold the strainer and do that, it's like, no, let me do it, I got it. Put this thing there by itself, take your pot, and find exactly, you don't want any interference, so when you take that pot, it comes straight over, and you can control the speed at which it comes. You can watch your tea leaves building up in the strainer so that you can clean it out and stop halfway. You don't have to feel you got to do the whole thing in one shot. Do some, stop, do some, stop, which we're going to do right now all together. Do some, stop, and then take out your thing. Like obviously this might be too small. Put it in your compost thing, put it back in again, And then sometimes you can also take the spoon at the end and you can like push down on the leaves to get that extra fragrant flavor of the tea leaves, to give it that extra little like oomph, depending if you want to. So that's so that's what I would suggest there. So now we'll move over to this sink here at Hogarth's. And you just stay with yourself and just pay attention. Don't get distracted. Can you back up?
Can you back up so she can go in? Nicola, some people need to come in with the cameras.
And at the end, make sure that you wipe all of the sides of the pot so that you're not bringing out whatever remnants are there or dribbles on the side of it in an unclean way somewhere else. You go. And then usually what we do is we take the strainer and we just put it right back into this pot. And then there's two things that you can do with this. Usually what we do is we take it straight over to the dishwashing and we already rinse it and cool it. Yes, yeah. Show them what's wrong with it. Tell them it's a washing machine.
Yeah.
And it's just like making cranking noises.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so now give me 1 second. Can you just the compost cover? Thanks. Yeah, we prefer to always clean out the strainer and the tea leaves and the lemongrass right like immediately. And then all you have left is the It's just a fetish of ours, but it also helps in cleaning up the pots.
Yes. It makes such a difference if you let it stand. It takes twice as much effort as cleaning.
And then already soak the pots or afterwards, but you'll see that there's hardly very little remnants on the pot. Nothing is burned, nothing is up around the sides, very like easy and simple, so.
Dishes on
And that's chai. Hopefully you learned something that you didn't know before. And we can start to take turns, I think, on Sundays and having everybody kind of become familiar on Sunday satsangs with learning how to make chai. Right, so that everybody, because we always know on Sundays there's always a request for it. So if different people know how to do it, it's like, okay, great, Madhu, your turn. You go on in there with a bunch of people and make the chai, and then next week it's somebody else, Gopi, this one, that one. So everybody gets familiar with it and is comfortable making that, because that's something that you can be of use at any one of the satsangs, any one of the ashrams, any place where Gurudev goes. There's always chai being served. That's guaranteed. There's always going to be chai being served. So if everybody, the more people that know how to make it, the better. So, Jackie?
Prabhu gets to stay with us while we're learning.
So here's the regular kind that I just left a few for the people who do eat wheat. You can see the difference.
Are these both gluten-free?
No, these are regular.
Regular, okay.
I was making chai.
So these are all the ones. These are the ones that aren't. These are the almond ones. So you can just see the difference, like when you roll.
Okay, so what are these?
These are the wheat ones.
With wheat.
And the pecans. So these are the normal pecan sandy. So if you wanted, however many are left, whoever wanted to feel the difference, like from when you rolled those. I mean, these have more fat, I think, from the pecans, a different fat. So it sticks different than those.
These are the one with the.
These are the ones with the pecans.
Oh, okay. And those
are almond, flour, and oat.
Which are the ones we all did together? These, right? These are the ones we all did together, and these are the ones you did before?
These are the regular ones.
Okay.
The normal pecan sandies with wheat.
These are the ones we did, those are the ones we did.
I just started doing them.
Those are the ones with the
This is the gluten-free.
No, those are gluten-free.
She did these ones before. She did
These are the ones before.
This is gluten-free.
These were.
This is the tray that everybody
Did together.
Yeah, and that's the cookies that are
From
from
this
this tray.
Okay, great.
So
these
you
are
can,
together.
whoever wants, however many are left, who
Before
wants to
and the
feel it.
after. Okay, who wants to feel? Go. Those of you
Just
who
don't
want
put
to
them in there.
Pirelli, put them over here.
These look what?
Look here. Huh?
So these are gluten-free?
Yeah.
Yes.
Gluten-free.
We did the gluten-free.
No.
Oh, I thought the gluten-free.
Just the covering of the sugar.
Just the sugar.
Ah, okay.
These are the ones you saw me that I was mixing up and
Got it.
needed to bake.
Right. Okay. Now we're on the same screen.
Right, those were baking. See how it's different? You feel the difference, right?
It's soft. It's what? Softer.
This is softer, this is a very hard.
Right, it's like a drier.
The pick has more oil.
Pecan, the pecan.
The more oil in the dough. This one was soft.
Feel it?
No, I didn't do the first one.
Kind of the way donuts, like kind of the way that powdered sugar donuts are.
Oh, yes.
तीनों जग बाहर रख दो।
तीनों जग बाहर रखो।
वो भी रखना। इसके लिए वो
Sometimes I just
Okay, got it.
whatever you have.
You'll see what happens.
I'm not gonna bite
I would make them try everything in the pot and seeds or blossoms, cinnamon sticks, nothing.
Yeah, so you're just, yeah, good. You're just doing another version. Yeah, no, this is the standard. This is.
Yeah, and everything you Can you do rose hip ones? That's even rose gold?
No, no. We can do like in different variations, like for the tea and things like that, but for the traditional chai, this is. So I think that brings the first baking afternoon to a close. I hope everybody's happy. Is we'll all head to the dining room. And yeah, we have to save some of these for Buddha and some of these for Buddha, so he can also try both. But we'll all start out there, so I would say everybody, help yourselves to one each first. And we will serve the tea in the traditional stainless glasses, not the paper cups. Sometimes we do the paper cups just to bring the dishwashing load down, but today, because it's our baking class and all that, will go with the stainless. And just a reminder on the stainless ones, always remember that the beauty of those with the lip the way it is, again, that straight edge, if you take two of those together and you pour one into the other and you try to cool it off, it will do it just perfectly because of the edge that's on that stainless cup. So, and again, I always remind everybody that they're hot. A lot of people when they first come here don't remember that. So what we always do is fill them halfway so that you can hold it from the top, have your half cup of chai, and then go back and fill it up again, right? So that's usually the way you do the stainless cups in India, is just halfway, and then you can fill it up a second, a third, a fourth time, whatever, but just, yeah. So enjoy your tea and your wedding cookies, your pecan sandies by Jackie and Tina. Sadhguru Maharaj Ki Jai. And following this, I believe the schedule is on the chalkboard, and then tomorrow morning we'll meet again for our 10 o'clock rice and dal with a shok in the kitchen, but we'll meet out in the lobby again at 10 o'clock because we'll have another jewel of something, another offering, and then something new. And then we'll move into the cooking class here from 10 to about 10:30, and then a shok here in the kitchen from about 10:30 till 12:30.
Jackie, give me a smile.
Sadhguru Maharaj Ki Jai.
Thank you.
So how many do you want to put in here?
He's got 1, 2,